Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. My name's Laura, and today we are going to make our own sifter to put on a bucket. This is something that I need to filter out the bigger chunks out of my compost for when I'm making my own seed starting mix. Our supplies for this project today consist of a scroll saw. You can use a jigsaw if you don't have one. 1/2 inch hardware cloth, that way it lets all the good soil through but catches all your mulch and wood chips that are inevitably mixed in with your compost. Wire cutters or dikes, safety glasses, a 3/4 inch chunk of wood, you'll see why shortly, a marker, your bucket lid, a strip of tape, a drill, and of course your bucket to catch all that amazing dirt. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to tape our wood chip to our marker so that we have a 3/4 inch circle inside this rim, okay? And then we are going to use our drill and cut a hole in the middle of that line so that we can then put that inside our scroll saw and cut out the rest of that circle. Now that we have our lid ring, what we're going to do is grab a piece of sandpaper that I did not list in the supplies and just scrape off those burrs real quick because they're going to come off really easy. You probably don't even need sandpaper, but we don't want them to come off in our wonderful compost, in our seed starting mix. So just that easy, and that part's done. The next thing we're going to do is stencil out our hardware cloth what we're going to need to cut. So we're going to place our hardware cloth flat as we can. It's a pain in the butt to get flat, so do what you can with that. Put our lid on it, and we're going to trace a circle on the inside and the outside so that we have our guidelines on where to cut this. As we're cutting our hardware cloth, we want to make sure we leave enough space with full squares for our bolts to catch it, how we attach it to the lid. So it's going to be fun. Cutting fencing is always so much fun. Once I got my ring cut out, I did have to make some adjustments and some additional cuts because I didn't factor in the lip. So essentially what we wanted to do was from the inside circle that we drew, We wanted to cut and make sure there were two full squares on the outside of that ring, and then it fits pretty snug and perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark where we want to drill our holes so that we can put our bolts and washers and hold this together. So where we put our holes, we want to make sure there's plenty of room for that washer to hold it snug and to have some good spacing. Okay, the washers we're using are a little bit bigger, so it's going to hold more of the joints. And I'm going to put one in every kind of corner. Of course, circles don't really have corners, but you get my drift. And then we're going to drill our holes. Then we are going to fit our circle back in here. Okay, so we drilled our holes, we got our bolts through, and now we are going to place our washers. And then tighten up the nuts to keep the screen in place. Of course, I've got a wrench so I can more than finger tighten them after I have them all in place. So we have our filter bucket. I did add another bolt just because one side wasn't quite as snug as I wanted it. And now we have our different composts and potting soils to filter through. The first compost we're going to filter through is rabbit compost. So this is the main reason we chose the 1/2 inch squares, because rabbit pellets should fit through that, but anything finer they probably wouldn't. So you may be able to see the little round pieces, they fit through, whereas not everything else does. So the wood chips that haven't composted all the way, those are getting stuck. So then we can just get rid of the wood chips, or at least the bigger ones, but our rabbit pellets have filtered right through. The next bucket of soil I have is just potting mix. So this is just store-bought potting mix. And as you can see, we've got quite a few bigger chunks. For a seed starting mix, you want to avoid those bigger chunks because it's harder for the little tiny baby seedling roots to get around those. So that is the whole purpose of this filter, is to get rid of those. So that is our bucket filter. Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe.